Lojo sampo pa gyo tra she pa toche tempe trinle yar ngonda pelge drolor tsampe ze parache palden lame shabla solwa de Omo a guru vajra dara suma timonish sane karm uta varda nishri badra vasa manya sarva siddhi hum hum. Om a guru vajra dara suma timonish sane karm uta varda nishri badra vasa manya sarva siddhi hum hum. Om a guru vajra dara Suma Timonisha San Uta Varda Nyeshri Bad Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Dagi Jetsun Lama Tuje Che Nyamda Dala Tuje Siksusu Yebe Shesan Dala Tendosu Uyon Sunge Nawa Tsedosu Seche Nyingne Sowa Debe Tse Dechen Korlo Visu Lekshun Yela Sambe Dede Malyopa Gemel Hunge Trubra Jingil Sonyi Sodan Dikden Shabe Tse Dunge Namge Yinsu Lekshun Lapchen Sonyi Yonsu Zopa Dan Chera Nyedun Chamra Jingil Chancho Parge Nyinsen Tugun Tu Nyu Peme Siudru Lekshun Chancho Drube Gegen Kunshishi Tungen Dela Drubra Jingil Dagi Lona Chola Chopa Dan Chemi Samjur Nyamba Shiwa Dan Chodan Tumbe Dede Malyopa Beme Hunge Drubra Jingil Dorna Tingne Tira Tamche Dan Teche Pardu Negab Tamche Rese Kemne Lama Kele Me Tukche Chingi Da Gongyab Drewe Nyamda Da Chala Chetsun Lame Tukche Rab Gongne Kudan Sungi Nawa Drame Tu Nyamsu Nyume Kesan Toprashu Kewa Kundu Yanda Lama Dan Drame Chiki Pela Longchechi Sadan Lamge Yonde Rabzon Dorje Changi Koba Nyurtoba Shu Pakyuke Kudan Dagi Lu Pakyuke Sundan Dagi Nga Pakyuke Tukdan Dagi Ten Yerme Chiktu Jingi Lu Makyuke Kudan Dagi Lu Makyuke Sundan Dagi Nga Makyuke Tukdan Dagi Ten Yerme Chiktu Jingi Lu Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakya Munye Swaha Om Muni Mahamuni Shakya Munye Swaha Om Muni Mahamuni Shakya Munye Swaha Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chanamla Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chip Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonamgi Drola Pinchir Sangye Drupareshu Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chanamla Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chip Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonamgi Drola Pinchir Sangye Drupareshu Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chanamla Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chip Dagi Chushe Gibe Sonamgi Drola Pinchra Sangye Druparashon. Tamje Kedo Dagi Chete. So, there are two main aspects that, define somehow our life and our way of being, which we could call it the view and the behavior. Basically, we have in our life our own view, which is the view is the world view in which we live, the paradigm in which we live. How do we see reality? Okay, so this is called the view, which is a very important part, because depending on the view that we have on reality, this will not only influence but will determine our whole way of relating to reality. So this is one part which is called the view, and we all have our own view. Even though sometimes we may not be aware of having a view, we have a view. Maybe many of us, we are not aware of living within a paradigm, but we live within a paradigm. So, this is the first part, which is called the view. The second aspect of our life, which is very important, is called the aspect of conduct or behavior. The aspect of conduct, in Tibetan we call Chöpa. It regards mainly the part which is the way how we relate to the world and to its beings. So the view is how we see reality. The conduct is how we relate to reality. So do I relate in a selfish way or in an altruistic way? I relate with anger or with love, with patience or with impatience, with jealousy or with rejoicing. And like this we can go on and on. Do I have morality? I do not keep my commitments, and different ways of behavior. Behavior is much more broad. There is much more wide. Okay, so we have these two main differences, which is there is the part of the view and the part of conduct. Okay, this is in our life, generally speaking. Okay, both of them are very, very important in our life. Both the part in which that regards how we see reality and how we relate to reality. Okay. So they are connected, but still they are separate. So we have these two main aspects. According to these two main aspects that we have in our life, we have the same two main aspects in our own path to enlightenment. And actually, even a Buddha has the two aspects also. When we go and we see, okay, there's the part of conduct and then there's the part of the view. So as in the teachings, it's very often, but actually most of the practices and the teachings is always this aspect is thereof. First we need to start with the basis, then we have the path, and then we go to the result. Which means we cannot reach something that is incoherent with the resources that we have, with what we are right now. If I need to reach something, it must be something that I can reach based on what I am now. So if we go to look in the teachings mostly, it's not that it's explaining something that is completely disconnected to our own reality right now, but it's directly connected to our reality of the present. That's why we have the basis, the path, and the result. The basis is where we are and what we are. What are the resources that we have? What is the situation in which we are? The result is what can actually we get with what can we transform? Where can we get with the resources that we have right now? And the path is what to do in order to get there. Okay. So in the basis, we do have a view and we do have a conduct. It's possible to develop a much better view and a much better conduct. So there is the path of developing the view and developing the conduct. Okay. So all the teachings, we can divide actually all the teachings of Buddha also into these two main aspects. It's the part of conduct and the part of view. Okay. So even in our lineage, we have basically two lineages, which we call the profound and the vast lineage. The profound lineage is coming from Buddha Manjushri to Nagarjuna and so on, and the vast lineage is coming from Maitreya to Asanga. As we have represented in the center of our Gompa, we have Akshobhya and Mamaki, the blue part, and then on top we have in the center Vajradhara, which is Buddha Shakyamuni, a manifestation of Buddha Shakyamuni, as he taught the Vajrayana path. And then on the two sides, actually on the right side of Vajradhara, us looking, our left side is Buddha Maitreya, representing the vast lineage. And on the left side is Buddha Manjushri, representing the profound lineage. Okay. Then on the side of Buddha Maitreya is Asanga, which is the one that brought on and teach the profound lineage through one text called the Abhisamaya Lankara. And then on the other side we have Nagarjuna, who was the one that taught the profound view through Umatsawa Sherab, which is called the root of the Madhyamika, the root of the middle way. So that's basically where these lineages are coming from. Then there is the whole process of transmission of these teachings, and until they get to Atisha, and Atisha brought them to Tibet, and like this gradually they arrived to Lama Tsongkhapa, and gradually they arrived to us. So even if we look in the representation of our Gompa, in the very beginning, in the very center of it, it's starting with the profound view and the vast view, which is view and profound lineage and vast lineage, which basically is showing us the part of view and the part of conduct. Okay? So this is something that it's very, very important for all of us, which is to develop these two main aspects, the aspect of conduct and the aspect of the view. It's like the two wings in order to fly towards enlightenment. We have the left wing is the wing of the view, and the right wing is the wing of conduct. And we need both of them together in order to fly to enlightenment. Okay? So this is important for us just to understand the difference between the two, and that these two aspects are actually very important for us. So, as we have seen that there are two main aspects, which is the view and the conduct. It's also called, the view is called the part of wisdom, and the conduct is called the part of method that we need to develop. In the previous teachings that we had just now in Christmas time, and before the weekend before also that we gave 4 days of teachings, we gave a lot of emphasis to the part of the conduct, the part of the method, which is we talked about in the Lojong mainly about developing the bodhicitta, the mind of love and compassion and altruism. And then before that we saw the preliminaries as relying correctly upon the guru, and we saw the text of Paponka Rinpoche on Lamring, the spoon to take the essence of the path. So on that text also, we saw very much the part of relying correctly upon the Guru, of recognizing the preciousness of this life, of impermanence. Then it says a law of karma, and all of this regards the part of conduct, which is the method, developing of relative bodhicitta. Today and tomorrow I would like to give mostly emphasis to the part that regards the view. Okay? So, but it's important for us just to know when we start to see the view that there is the view and then there is the conduct. There is wisdom and then there is method. And both of them have the same level of importance. It's like two wings that we need in order to reach enlightenment. Okay, but today and tomorrow we are going to give emphasis to the left wing, which is the part of the view. So, as we go through conduct and view, these days, today and tomorrow, I would like mostly to address the part of the view, and which regards our paradigm, regards the way how we see and relate to reality. The first step is us understanding what is our current view. How do we now see reality? That's a very, very important step for us to start with. Okay? It's not good if we start right away talking about emptiness and shunyata here and there. First of all, we need to go to the basis. Where am I? And from that we can move on. So, our own view, we could divide it into two main aspects, which are the two aspects of our mind, which regard the constructed, so-called constructed in Tibetan kundak, and the spontaneous henke aspects of our mind. So, we need to understand that the way, depending on what is our view of reality, it has a total influence on the way how we relate and how we see everything in our life. It's fundamental, actually. Okay, it's not just some sort of idea. It's what guides and directs the way how we relate to reality and how we see and act in everything. So, based on that, we have basically two aspects of our mind, what is called a constructed aspect and a spontaneous aspect, kunda and henke. The constructed aspect basically is the aspects of our mind which are totally influenced by our culture, by the education, by the experiences we have, by the religion we follow, by all the different information that we receive as we go along our life. Okay. And on the other side, the spontaneous aspect of our mind, or the unborn aspect of our mind, is the aspects that are there independently of the cultural and education and so on context in which we are, independent of what we see and what we experience, independently of the information we receive. For example, let's say jealousy. It doesn't matter if we go to the Aborigines in Australia, or if we go to European countries, or to North America, Central America, South America, Africa. It doesn't matter where we go in the world, Asia, people do have jealousy. The same way people have anger, fear, miserliness, love, compassion, generosity, humility, patience. These are things that we all have in a spontaneous way, independently of the cultural aspect. So there are parts of our mind which are non-conceptual, more deeper level, which actually are spontaneous, which we have independently of where we are born, independently of our cultural context. Okay? The constructed aspect of the mind, it's very interesting because most of the times we don't see it as being constructed. And most of the times, even worse, we don't even think is an aspect of our mind. We just think that's how things are. Okay. So, let's make two examples. One which is very, very superficial, and one which is a little bit more dense and profound. The first one is an example I like very much, that's why I always give the same. But I think it's quite clear. Which is the example of the pink color and the blue color. Normally, if we ask what's the color for boys, we would say blue. And what's the color for girls? We would say pink. Would you send your son of 5 years old to the school dressed in a pink dress? Depends on what is your worldview, but most probably not. Okay, living where we live and so on. So, the reason for that is that if I ask you why is pink the color for girl and why is blue the color for boys, what is the answer? Because that's how it is. We don't have really a specific answer for that normally. So one day I came along one article which was explaining this actually. And it made me reflect a lot because it was saying that originally the color for the dresses for kids were basically a sort of a beige, white, gray, beige color. Because colored cloth were very, very expensive. So for children mostly, they were not using any color. It was just the natural color of the cloth. There were no dyeing in the cloth. So basically, in 1918, with the beginning of the Industrial Revolution,
the colored cloth became affordable. So the people of the marketing of the time, they needed to teach people, look, you can have colored clothes for your kids. And that's so beautiful, that's so nice. And they wanted to show people which color they should have, because the people need to be directed somehow. So, based on that, they chose the colors which were already being used somehow in Europe before, which if we go to look before the time in the 18th century and so on, in France, for example, the noble families, the princes, the men were using pink and the women were using blue. So this was because pink was said to be a stronger color and blue was said to be a more soft color. So based on that, in 1918, when they first made the first marketing to sell clothes for children, what they did, blue is the color for girls and pink is the color for boys. And like this, they sold color clothes for 2 years. But then in 1920, I believe that people were not used to buy clothes every 6 months like they are used now. And the market and the business need to move on and the whole industry need to turn around. So what happened is that they said, okay, let's move things around. So in order to sell more, they exchanged it. And they said, no, pink is the color for girls and blue is the color for boys. And what happened? Since 1920, we are in 2017. And what we do? Pink is for girls and blue is for boys. We follow it. And which is not a problem that we follow it. The problem is that we are not even aware that we are following it. And if we see someone else using pink for boys and blue for girls because they got stuck in 1918, they never went through the market campaign of 1920. What would we say to them? You are wrong. What a bad thing you are doing, That's not how things are. So not only we have a constructed view, we are not aware of being inside a constructed view most of the time. Okay, this is one aspect. Also, if we say, what's the problem if a man goes around wearing a skirt? It's actually much more comfortable, I can tell by personal experience. Okay, but this is again a constructed view that we have of what is right, of what is wrong, or what is the cannot, in many, 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 many levels. I will show another deeper level of a constructed view. This is a more delicate aspect, more dense. And it's my very personal point of view, so I can be right as I can be wrong. So just take it as one point of reflection for you to get your own conclusion. I believe that we have mainly 3 influences on our constructed view, which is the influence of our monotheistic, I'm talking about our Western society, here in this part of the world. We have mainly an influence from our monotheistic religions. We have an influence from the materialistic, so-called scientific, mechanicist view of Newton. And we have a strong influence also from the economical, capitalist view. Okay? So I think these are basically 3 big influences we have. From the monotheistic religion, one of the influences that come along is the influence of seeing that there is one main creator for the universe and for reality. Everything has been created by one. And so even in the common way of speaking, when there is something that have happened and we don't know how to explain it, what is the common way of saying? Why is this like that? Because of God's will. Okay? Or say, with God's will, everything will go as we want. Okay? So we have this tendency not of relating to, one main creator, one main cause, one main solution. We come with this influence. this influence, it becomes a worldview, it becomes a way of seeing reality, and it influences us, according to my perspective, in many other things. So what happens is that if we look, we have the natural tendency normally to see situations and to go to look for one cause or one main, person or one main thing to blame for. And how to say in English colpevole? Culprit. Okay, no, new word for me. Okay, we look for one culprit. We look for the guilty one, the one to blame for. Okay, and at the same time we look for one solution. Okay, so we can see this when we have a problem ourselves in our personal lives. How do we look for a solution? How do we look at a problem? Oh, it's a conjunction of so many different causes and conditions that together brought me to the situation where I am, or we go to look for the one guilty for what we are experiencing. And when we go to look for the solution, also what do? We look for one solution, or we go to look for many different solutions to deal with the situation. Our tendency is to look for one guilty and one solution. If we look from a social level, that's what we do. Even in politics, in a social, we have the tendency to say, oh, he's the one to be blamed. And that's the other one, that's the solution. That's completely stupid. We know that. If we stop to analyze, we know it's stupid. But still we do it. Because it is in our worldview of seeing things in this polarized way, like, okay, one cause, one solution. Okay, and because if we truly analyze, for example, from the social-political level, which is not the subject now, and I don't know so much about here, as we are in Italy, about Italy's history. I know a little bit better about Brazil, but when we look at our social, economical situation and so on, I don't believe it's caused only by things that have been happening in the past 4 years, for example. There were many, many choices and things that were made 50 years ago, 100 years ago, and so on, that actually gradually influence and create the situation in which we are nowadays today here. So if the situation was created by multiple causes in a gradual way, and this is the result today, the solution can only be, from my perspective, from different angles, need to work on different levels in a gradual way. There is no anything like an immediate solution. Even though we would like, it is not possible. Okay? Same thing is in our life, same thing is in a relationship, same thing it is in everywhere. Even if we talk from the point of view of our health, for example, we have the tendency of seeing, for example, cancer, no? Talking about what is the cause of cancer and what is the cure for cancer. Personally, I think we will never find one or the other. Basically because we are looking for the wrong thing. Because we cannot find the cause of cancer. Because I believe that cancer is a sickness that is created by many different causes put together. It's not only the food, it's not only the behavior, it's not only the environment, it's many things together that create sickness. And on the other side, the solution also is not only in one thing. There are many other aspects together that can be a solution. So, this is just another example of this aspect of behavior that normally we have, okay? And this is an example of our own worldview and how much it influences every aspect of our life. So I'm not here to say if this is a right view or a wrong view. It's just to understand that it's a worldview. The same way I'm not saying that thinking pink is the color for girls and blue is the color for boys. I'm not saying this is right or this is wrong. I'm just saying this is a worldview. It's a constructed view that we have. It's not something that exists there by its own. Okay? So the first step that we need to go through is understanding what is our own view right now. Okay. In order for us to see how do we experience reality, which is the basis in order for us to have a correct view of reality, we start, first of all, with, as Shantideva said in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, takpe ngola marek parting me zingmaing. Kandret drotape ngola marek parting me ba ziminuba. Takpe ngola marek parting me zingmaing. The translation will be something like, without entering in contact with the designated object, without entering in contact with the designated object, is not possible to apprehend its known existence. Without entering in contact with the designated object, it's not possible to apprehend its known existence. Which means, in order for me to understand a negation, I must first be able to imagine the affirmation that is directly opposite to that negation. I don't know, it's clear this? In order for me to comprehend a negation, there is no elephant in this room, I must be able to comprehend the opposite affirmation, there is an elephant in this room. If I am not able to imagine how would be an elephant in this room, I'm never going to understand the lack of an elephant in this room, the non-existence of an elephant in this room. Okay? So in order for us to understand the negation, first we must understand the object of negation. Gakchen Lunzin, we say in Tibetan, recognizing the object of negation. That's a very fundamental aspect. The object of negation is that which actually does not exist. But in order for us to understand it, we must be able to imagine it. Because just to focus on the no, it doesn't exist, is not enough. We must before understand what doesn't exist. And we must be able to imagine it and to see it. Once we can imagine what doesn't exist, then we can understand the non-existence. Okay? Like, I can never ever understand and perceive the non-existence of an elephant in the Gompa if I'm not able to imagine an elephant in the Gompa. Okay? So, in the whole process of the correct view of reality, which is based on a negation, which is the lack of inherent existence and so on, we must first step is to recognize the object of negation. We call in Tibetan Gakcha Ngunzing. First step is to recognize the object of negation. The object of negation is our own ignorance, is the way how we perceive reality. That's the first step that we need to do. So let's try to understand a little bit better how do we perceive reality, first of all. Okay? So I would like to go through basically two examples. First example regards impermanence. So, if we look to the world that we perceive through our five senses, is it permanent or is it impermanent? In other words, is it constantly in transformation or is it static without ever changing? It's constantly in transformation, right? We don't need to have a degree in philosophy in order to understand that, right? I think anyone with the minimum reasoning, if we ask him or her, oh, is this world where you live, is it permanent or is it impermanent? Are things changing or are things always the same? What is the answer? It's impermanent. That's quite obvious and that's quite simple to understand. But even though we can see and we can understand that it is impermanent, this is our understanding when we stop to analyze. But now, in our daily way of relating to reality, in our daily experiences, when we look at people, when we see places and situations and so on, how does this impermanent world appear to us? It appears to us as being permanent or it appears to us as being impermanent? For example, we came in this morning, we look at the paintings in the walls, 2 hours have passed. If I ask you, is this the same paintings or they have changed? What's the answer? No change. Okay. If we stop to analyze, has there been any change? Actually, yes. They don't become old from one second to the other, right? It's a gradual process. So, it's the same thing. We see one person today, and then we are going to see the same person after a week. Who do we expect to meet? The same person as before. Can that ever happen? No. Everyone is always changing and transforming based on our experiences and so on. So what happened here is that even though we know quite clearly, if we stop to analyze, that the world in which we live, it's an impermanent reality. There are permanent phenomena, but that's another subject. But everything that we can see and experience through our five senses is impermanent. Even though we know that we live in an impermanent reality, it appears to us as if it was permanent. And not only it appears to us as if it was permanent, we grab at it as being permanent. And not only we grab at it as being permanent, we are not aware of it. In our daily way of experiencing reality, the impermanent reality appears to us as being permanent, and we grab at it as being permanent, and we are not aware of this process, and we react, and we act and react in consequence. Okay? So, 3 important points. Appearance, grabbing at such appearance, and reaction to such grabbing. So basically, the impermanent reality appears to us as if it was permanent. We grab at it as if it was permanent, and we react and act and react towards it based on a permanent perception. Okay? So for example, can we get upset and suffer when things change? Yes. Do we accept easily change in reality? Very often, no. Like this. We can go on with many examples. But the point is that basically, by not seeing the impermanent reality as being impermanent, and by experiencing it in a very incoherent way, which is the directly opposite way, even though it is impermanent, we see it as if it was permanent, and we grab at it as if it was permanent, and we relate to it as if it was permanent. What is the consequence that this brings to us? Harmony, well-being, joy, peace, or suffering and conflict? Suffering and conflict. Okay? So this is one example of a wrong view of reality. Okay? It's a more gross one, but it's a very important. Just imagine for a moment, how would it be if we simply would experience impermanent reality as being impermanent? No? Just for 1 minute, just imagine how would that be. And we are not asking anything which is okay from science fiction or completely mystical thing, It's simply impermanent, that's all. It's nothing completely so out of the world, okay? As simple as that. It's impermanent, accept it as it. That's all. Just relate to what is impermanent as being impermanent. Even though it's so simple, it's not so easy. Okay? Why? Because we are ignorant. But now we are looking at ignorance. We are not looking at wisdom. So, is it clear for us that the impermanent reality appears to us as being permanent, and we grab at it as being permanent, and we act and react in accordance? And when we grab at it as being permanent, we do it in a total unconscious way. We are not aware of the process that is going on. It's not that, oh, look at this beautiful, look at the tree. It appears to me as being permanent, but actually it's impermanent. Yes, but I will grab at it as being permanent. Don't do that. We just see it, and then when it's the next time, we look at it and we expect it to be the same. We are not perceiving the constant transformation. Okay? If we were able to see impermanent phenomena as impermanent, it's so beautiful. It solves so many problems. Also because this is not a subject now. Subject now is the view, and this was just one example of view. But if we go a little bit into impermanence, why things change. Things change because they interact. And in the moment that we see phenomena as if they were permanent, we also create an attitude in which we are victims of the world in a way. Because we are not aware of the interaction that is in between things. So, in the moment that we perceive impermanent phenomena as being impermanent, it means they are always changing. And why? Because they interact, and I am part of this interaction also. Okay. It's so beautiful, it's so powerful. So this is an example. If we change one part of our view, it changes a great part of our life. Okay. So, impermanent reality appears to us as if it was permanent. We grab at it as if it was permanent. And on top of that, we act and react in accordance. Okay? This is one example. I think it's quite clear, right? Another example. We could have different levels now, but I'll just go to one more to be more simple. The reality in which we live, if we analyze it, is it objective or is it subjective? If we start looking and analyzing, things exist exactly in the same manner for everyone, or they are at least slightly different for each one of us. When I sound the bell, the sound of the bell that each one of us listen, is this exactly the same, or is this, if we stop to analyze it, we say, okay, each one of us perceive in a different way? Okay. We look clearly. If we stop to analyze, it's not as easy to understand as impermanent, but it's not anyhow. We're still here. We don't need to have a degree in philosophy to understand it. The reality in which we live is objective or subjective? Subjective, no? Even when I ask this to kids in school, what they all answer? Subjective. Okay? So we live in a subjective reality, right? Where things exist independent of the observer. But now, when we relate to our reality in our daily basis, when we listen to the sound, as we listen, without analyzing, without the philosophical mind, how does it appear to us? As existing in an objective, autonomous, independent way, or as being subjective, interdependent with the observer? How does it appear to us? As if it was objective. Okay. So again, what happened? Even though we live in a subjective reality, the subjective reality appears to us as if it was objective. And we grasp at such objective reality, and we act and react in accordance. Okay? So how does this work? By acting and rejecting and experiencing the subjective reality as if it was objective, what is the result that this brings to us? Peace, harmony, joy, or conflict and suffering and so on? Let's see. When we relate to reality as if it was objective, we experience a situation, let's say it's a situation of pleasure or a situation of suffering. When we are in such situations, how do we see it? As if the object of pleasure exists in an interdependent way, depending on the observer, and I am part of that reality, or it exists as an object of pleasure because it is an object of pleasure objectively. How does it appear to us? As being an object of pleasure by its own self, right? The same thing is when we have a moment of suffering, the object of suffering, the person, the situation, the place, whatever, how does it appear to us? As being something independent, objective. So, the objects of pleasure and the objects of suffering, the situations, the people, the objects, and so on, of pleasure and of suffering, appear to us as if they would exist in a complete independent, objective, autonomous, inherent way. So I don't want to suffer and I want to be happy. So if the object that makes me happy exists independently of me and I want to be happy, what do I need? More of that object, attraction. If I don't want to suffer and the object of suffering exists independently of me, what do I do in front of the object of suffering? Aversion. I don't want it to me. Okay? So, out of this ignorance, which is out of this appearance of reality as being objective and the grasping at this objective reality, we see ourselves as existing totally independent of the rest of the existence. Which means everything that we see and experience, we are sort of a victim. Let's use the word victim, but in a both positive and negative aspect. When, in other words, we are a result of the world in which we live. Because if I am happy, it's because this situation is a positive situation. If I am suffering, it's because this situation is a negative situation. And I have nothing to do with all of that. So what happens? I want more of positive situations, I want less of negative situations. And from this, I create this attitude which we call the self-cherishing or selfish attitude, in which we become obsessed with our own self-gratification, because we are totally independent of the rest. So we are always thinking, what is good I want for me, what is bad I want to put away, because I am not aware that I am part of the bad, I am part of the good. I just see as being something completely separated. So out of this I have attraction, desire, attachment, jealousy, envy, aversion, anger, hatred, revenge, fear, arrogance, and so on. Okay? And out of this I suffer. So it is very important for us to understand this process, which goes objective appearance, grasping at objective appearance. Once I grasp at reality as if it was of objective existence, what happens? Things exist for what they are, and I have nothing to do with that. So if something makes me suffer, it's because of its own fault. If something makes me happy, it's because of its own qualities. And by this we create this total separation and division from the world, where I, as the observer, I have nothing to do with the rest. I am just a victim of the world, in the positive and negative sense. And this is what manifests in our selfishness, that brings attraction, aversion, hatred, and so on. Okay? Which brings our own suffering. Is this process clear for us? Okay? It is very important to have this process clear. That's why the ignorance of grasping at inherent existence, of grasping at objective existence, is the root of our suffering. Okay? If we get to this point, we are already in a very good point, okay? If we are able to make this point clear, that's already a very good step that we have done. But again, it is very, very important for us to see how it appears to us, to see our own grasping at inherent existence. That's fundamental. Okay, so let's go a little bit more on that. So, it is actually very, very important for us to first of all see our own ignorance. We need to see the object of negation clearly. Once we see clearly the object of negation, then it's much more easy actually to understand the actual negation. Okay? So as we were seeing, what is the wrong way how we see reality? That's very, very important, not to have any hurry to go to the actual emptiness or the lack of something. We need first to understand that something without any hurry. So, how do we experience reality in a wrong way? We have seen 2 examples. Let's go a little bit more deep into it. When we have an attraction or an aversion, When we have an emotion such as desire, such as anger, such as pride or miserliness or arrogance or fear or love or generosity, anything, okay? Our object of attraction and aversion, for instance, how does this object appear to us? As being something inherently existent as an object of aversion. In other words, it is an object of aversion because it is something bad, or it is an object of aversion because I attribute such value to it. How do we experience it? It's bad because it's bad, or it's good because it's good. Okay, let's make two examples. One example I like always to make, because I remember Lama Ganchin made me this example. I just put some little bit more colors in it. One time we were in the car coming back from Milan, and the example says, imagine we are on a shop, okay? And suddenly, as we are walking on this shop, we see one beautiful jacket, okay? So, as we see this beautiful jacket, we look at it and we say, oh, look how nice is this jacket. Oh, it's really cool. And look at the colors. So it's such a nice color, and the cloth and the way how it's cutted. Oh, such a beautiful design. Oh, it's such a nice jacket. I really want it. No, I don't want it. I really need it. Or do I have another 25 jackets? You know, there is a party where I need to go, and I don't have a jacket that is going to fit well together with the trousers I have or whatever, and it's cold, and I need a nice jacket. It's so important for me. Because in that party there is going to be that other person that I want to attract his or her attention. So because of that, I need to put that nice, beautiful jacket on, and I really need it. And then we start there flirting together with the jacket, and we go and say, okay, I want you, I need you, and okay, maybe we don't have enough money, so we are there making, okay, I'm not going to buy this and that thing, so I can buy the jacket. Maybe we have enough money, but we feel guilty to spend so much money with a jacket when we already have another 25, so we try to find a justification. Maybe we have no problem at all spending money, and we are just ready to buy it. The fact is that we are in front of the jacket, ready to buy the jacket, beautiful, wonderful, marvelous jacket. I need it. I want it. It's special. It's beautiful. Okay? When we are in front of that object of desire, is it beautiful and special because I am attributing such value, or it's good because it's good? It's good because it's good. That's how we act. That's how we see it. Then as we are in front of that beautiful, wonderful jacket that we want so much, suddenly, before we buy it, the person that we want to show us with the jacket, that we want to attract the attention, appears in the shop. Comes, oh, hello, how are you? Oh, hi, nice to see you here, and so on. Okay, nice. Look at the jacket that we are looking and say, oh, what an ugly thing, you know? How come people are so ignorant, need so much courage to wear something like that, you know? So much ignorance. Look how expensive for such a bad taste. I cannot even imagine how someone can wear something like that and be so stupid, so use so much money for something so bad. What a bad taste. Mom, you know, so many bad things in this world. Look at that. How awful, how terrible. How would someone ever do something like that to wear such a bad jacket, okay? How much ignorance on that. And look at the price and look at the quality. How can someone ever do something like that? So much ignorance. Better to keep distance from this type of people, no? Then, suddenly, what happens is that the person say all of this about the jacket and suddenly come to and say, okay, goodbye, I'm going. And we remain us with the jacket. We look at the jacket. Is it the same as before, or something have changed? Do we still buy it? Most probably not. Okay. Has anyone working in the shop came and changed the jacket for another one? No. Is it still the same object of desire as before? No. Why? Because the value that we attribute to it has changed. Okay. So the object of desire, it is an object of desire based on the value that we attribute to it. Okay? Even if we enter from the point of view of economics, it becomes an object of desire when there is more need. The more something is needed and the more that is rare, the more value we give to it. Okay? It's like the question, you are in the desert and someone comes and offers you a bottle of water or 10 diamonds. What would you take? Okay? Depends how much water you have, okay? And how thirsty you are. So basically, it's an object of attraction, and the level of attraction depends on the value that we attribute to it, more than the object by its own self. Okay? That's even the basis of economics, actually, but that's another subject. So, the fact is that the value that we attribute is what makes it an object of attraction, more than the object by itself. But when we are in front of it, how does it appear? As being good because it's good. That's why I need it. Let's take, for instance, an object of aversion. When we are in front of someone that harms us, or we are in front of an object of aversion, why is that object of aversion something that we have aversion to? Because it is bad, because it is negative. It's not because I am attributing such value to it, because that's its own nature. That's why, because it is bad. Okay? So let's make another example here. Let's say we are walking on the road, and as we are nicely walking in the road, someone comes from the side or from behind and push us down very strongly. Okay? We fall on the floor, break our arm, an exposed fracture. Come the ambulance, we go to the hospital, so much pain in the arm. The person that pushed us, the fact that someone pushed us, and the person that pushed us, is that an object of attraction, an object of gratitude, an object of aversion, an object of anger? What type of object is that? Object of aversion, right? Minimum. It can also be an object of revenge. I'm going to catch you in the day I catch you. I'm going to see what I'm going to do. I didn't do anything to you, and you push me in this way, you harm me. What terrible people. And then there we are thinking who that person may be. And then we start imagining, because we saw the person somehow passing by our side, then we can imagine maybe it was this person, maybe it was that person, because of this and that. And there we are with a lot of aversion to the whole thing. Okay? Then, at a certain point, after one day that we are there with cultivating so much anger towards that person and aversion and so on, comes the police and they bring a film of the footage of a security camera that was nearby and that took the whole scene. And I see the whole scene that happens, what happened actually was that behind me, I was walking, behind me, not so far away, there was a robbery, and someone shot. And the bullet was coming in my direction. So someone else, seeing what was happening, pushed me in order for me not to get shot. And actually the bullet went past exactly to the place where I was and finished on the wall. And it means that if the person would have not pushed me, most probably I would be dead. So when I see that that person went through danger himself in order to save me. And yes, my arm is still painful. It is still broken. The person has still pushed me. But what now? Is an object of gratitude or is an object of aversion? I hope it's an object of gratitude, okay? Because I see that person has saved my life. Let's say that footage someone brought was fake. And I never come to know that. Is it still the person an object of gratitude? Yeah. Because it depends on the value that I am attributing. If it's an object of gratitude or if it's an object of aversion. Okay? Everything, our objects of attraction, aversion, anger, miserliness, jealousy, fear, it all depends on the value that we attribute. But even though it depends on the value that we attribute to it, how do we experience it? As if it would exist by its own nature, its own characteristics in an objective, intrinsic way. Okay? Another example, a little bit more gross. It's It's said that in old times in India, we talk about like 1,500 years ago maybe, some of the Mahasiddhas, great practitioners, great realized beings, teachers, when they were teaching disciples in order to check if a disciple was ready to practice Vajrayana, one of the prerequisites to practice well the Vajrayana path is to have a correct view of reality. In other words, not to be attached to reality as existing in an objective, solid, independent way. Okay? So, one of the tests that was given to a disciple, the disciple was given to eat the 5 nectars. The 5 nectars would be excrement, urine, blood, semen, and bone marrow. Okay, let's take one of these, for example, such as excrement. Okay, let's say we have a plate full of excrement in front of us. Okay, how does it appear to us? As being something inherently disgusting? Or is disgusting because I attribute such value to it? How do we see it? How does it appear to us? As being disgusting. Why? Because that's shit, you know. Don't need to discuss about it. We even say normally, don't give me shit. You know, it's something bad. It's something negative. It's something disgusting by its own true nature, you know. I don't know about other phenomena, but this one exists inherently, you know. It's something disgusting to avoid. Now, this is how we perceive it. If we start to analyze it, if we really go through it and we go to see it, for example, even if we look from the very physical aspect of the smell, how does our body work regarding smell and our mind, consequently? It's said that one of the reasons why we don't like the smell of shit is because when we are very small, the first times that we felt that smell, we were having burns on our butt. So because at that time we have burns, how do you say it? Correct in English to say burn? We have like burning sensation because basically we shit in ourselves and nobody cleans us right away. So we get burning, right? So it's not a pleasurable sensation to have burning. So when we are a small baby, we connect the smell of the excrement, the smell of shit, with the burning and the pain. So we don't like it. Okay? So this is said to be the reason why we don't like that smell. Okay? Because the first times we experienced that smell, we had an experience of suffering. It was not pleasurable. Okay? Now, if we truly look, you know, the excrement by itself is not something positive or negative. It's not something disgusting or pleasurable or neutral. It depends on the value that is actually attributed to it. Okay? So, even if we may look, you know, let's say there are people that make money with the sewage and all, like you can make gas with it. So the more shit is there, the better it is, okay? Because you can make gas out of it, okay? Let's make, for instance, in Tibet, in the Cultural Revolution time, one of the things that the government at the time was imposing in monasteries was to cultivate the land, because they say, okay, you monks cannot live depending on other people, you need to cultivate your own food and cultivate the land. So they were giving lessons of agriculture and making the monks to plant and so on. Anyhow, in this at that time, one of the things that they did was because Tibet, imagine, 4,000 meters high, not easy to plant vegetables and so on. So they needed to fertilize the land. So what is one of the best fertilizers? Shit. Okay. So what they would do, they had in the monasteries big cooking pots, really big ones. So they would put 2 woods on top, boards, and this would be the toilet. And after they would take all the excrements and they would go to fertilize the land. And who needed to do this job by hand was the ones that had the higher position. So Lama Ganchen, for example, during a period of his life, he needed to do that. One of Rinpoche's job, I think for half a year, something like that, was to grow around, to fertilize the land using the excrement from people with the hand, So sometimes if we complain we need to do jobs that are not nice, remember what our guru was doing for some time, no? Which was not once or twice, it was for quite a long time doing this. So basically because he had the highest position in society and they were making the highest people to do the lowest job at that time. This was part of the whole cultural revolution thing. Anyhow, the fact is that regarding the need for the land to plant and so on, did it work as a fertilizer? Yes. So here is another value that is given to it. Okay? What I want to say is that even excrement that is seen as something we see not good, if we really start to analyze and look at it and so on, it is something completely different. Okay? Like in ancient China, they used to make a soup with baby poo for people that were coming from far away. And what happened is that who talked about this was a Dutch doctor, because basically he was a normal Western doctor not so many years ago, and he found out that one of his patients had some problems, and he gave so many antibiotics and medicines to try to cure his patient that he got rid of the main sickness, but as a consequence he killed all the intestinal flora, and the patient was not able to digest anything anymore and was dying because of that. And the doctor had no idea what to do whatsoever. He was completely frustrated because he saw his patient dying out of the thing that he created. So, looking for a solution, he went online and he was researching, and then he found out that in ancient China, when someone was traveling from far away, in order for the person not to have any problems of digestion when going to a faraway land, they would make a special soup with herbs, but the main ingredient was the poop shit from a small baby, which was born at that place. And the logic is, together with the poo of the baby come the bacteria, the flora for the intestine, so that's good. So his idea was, what happens if I give excrement from a healthy person to the sick person? And he did it. He had no more choice. So he went there, he took excrement from healthy people, and he put inside the sick guy, which was almost dying. After 4 days of the therapy, he went home completely cured. Okay. So after that, this doctor, he made research on that, and nowadays exists shit capsules basically, for those that have some specific types of problems. Okay? So as we can see, depends on the value that we attribute to it. Okay? The same excrement that we can see as something completely bad can actually save the life of someone else. And if you are dying and you need some good shit for you, that's something quite good. So, what I want to say, it depends very much on how we see things, on the value that we attribute to it. This is just another example to talk about it, just to see, but it's an example to see how strongly things appear to us as if they were of inherent existence. And we grab at it and we believe in it, but actually it's not like that. Okay? I think it's quite clear, right? So this is a very important point of us understanding the object of negation. Understanding what do we mean when we say inherent existence. It means something that exists independently of causes, conditions, its own parts, independently of the observer. It is like this because it is like this. It is an object of anger because it is an object of anger. It is an object of attraction because it is an object of attraction. It's good because it's good. We see it completely independently of the observer. That's what it means by seeing it as inherently existent. Okay? And that's the way how we perceive. So it's very important for us to look at our own experiences to see how we perceive it in that way. Okay? I think it's quite clear, right? Okay? And this is the first step on the realization of emptiness. It is recognizing the object of negation. It is a very, very important aspect. Okay? And Geshe Shiwanchuk, one of the gurus of Lama Ganchen, of many, many masters, he wrote different books. In one of his books, he's talking about the object of negation. And he says, the object of negation, recognizing the object of negation, is like recognizing someone as being the thief. The thief, someone robbing, the thief, like robbing someone, the robber of a robbery. Basically, what happened is the following. I know that someone is robbing, okay? Someone is stealing, I know that. And I also know Devadatta. But until the moment that I don't know that it's Devadatta the one that is robbing, I cannot go and block him. Okay? I know that someone is stealing. I think it's not good for anyone to steal. We must stop the stealing. We see the harm that is bringing. We know Devadatta very well. But until the moment that I don't see Devadatta and I say, you are the one stealing, I'm not able to block him. Okay? So what does it mean to recognize the object of negation? It's like to make the connection. Devadatta is the robber. I need to make the connection. Only to know Devadatta and to know someone is stealing is not enough. I need to put the two together. Similar to that, when we talk about recognizing the object of negation, it's not enough just to see how things appear to us as being inherently existent. We also need to see that that is what is creating us suffering. Okay? Reality appeared to me as being of objective, inherent existence, and this is creating to me suffering. That's the first realization on the path of realizing the correct view of reality. Okay? So, and this is something very, very important as we go through it, because the base is to go through the whole rest. So, this first step, which is the step of recognizing the object of negation, it's a very, very important one, because the first step in order for us to realize emptiness is called, once we are able to recognize the object of negation, is also called the step of realizing the wisdom of listening about emptiness. It is when we are sure that phenomena lack inherent existence. We don't know why, but we can see it. And the object of negation is not inherent existence, generally speaking. It's our own grasping at inherent existence. That's what we need to see. Because if we go right away to emptiness and we do not look at our own ignorance, it's like learning how to shoot an arrow, but not knowing where is the target. If we don't know where is the target, it doesn't matter how well I learn how to throw an arrow, I will not get a target. It's like developing a powerful laser light, but not knowing where is the shadow. Or having the most powerful medicine, but not knowing where is the sickness. Or having a very strong army and not knowing where is the enemy. Okay? So it's very important for us to know where is the point where we need to direct. And where it is, it's in ourselves. It's our own ignorance. So this is the first very, very, very important step. Once we know that, we have already done a very important step on the path. And we must see our own ignorance. No, we don't need to be afraid of that. But we need to see how does reality appear to me in an incoherent way. That's important. So as we said in the beginning, even though we live in a subjective reality, it appears to me as being objective. Even though it's an impermanent reality, it appears to me as being permanent. That's incoherent. That's my own ignorance, in few words. So we must see it in ourself. We must see it in our own experience, in our own self. Okay? With this, we did make a great step. Next step, which we're going to see after lunch, is understanding how reality does exist. And reality exists in an interdependent way. So we are going to see the gross interdependence, the subtle interdependence, and the very subtle interdependence. By understanding how reality exists, we can see how inconsistent is the way how we perceive reality normally. Okay? And from that, we go to the next step, which is the actual final solution of, okay, the opposite mode of apprehension of our own ignorance, how to eliminate the way how we see things in an ignorant way. Okay? So we go through these steps. So now we stop for our lunch.
Jetsu lame kutse raptenchi namkara tinle chochur gepadang losan tempe dreme sasumgi drove musel tatu negyurchi nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delekshin ninsen taktu delekpe Concho sumge jingilo, concho sumge ngodrupsol, concho sumge trashisho. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Oma hon tembala me sangye rinpoche, kyobala me tamcho rinpoche, trembala me gendo rinpoche, kyamne kuncho sumla che pa bu.